This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 95. The goal is to get face to face. Are you a real estate agent with an entrepreneurial spirit who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you just can't seem to find the right plan to help you get there? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, especially if you're new to the business, but even if you're a veteran, I've created a free jumpstart course for you, and it's sitting over waiting at freeagentgift.com. It's just a look at this business from a strategic perspective, which if you've ever heard the podcast before, you know that is near and dear to my heart, to help you think strategically before you just run out and start trying to do this, because it's a very linear way to think. It's a tough way to make a living in this business. All right, let's get started. The goal is to get face to face. Now, sitting here, remember, not only am I the founder and the host of the podcast of the Realty Classroom, but I also run the Griffin Realty Group, and I have for a long time, and I've been an agent for a long time, and I still do it. I still go into houses to list them, and I work with buyers in my own book of business, and I think that's important for my agents, people in the Realty Classroom, and anybody listening to know that I actually do this. In fact, as of the recording of this, only 30 minutes ago, I was in a house face to face. So, ironically, I wanted to talk about this anyway, but I'm coming fresh off of one of these moments, and it was emotional. These sisters who are in charge of this estate have lost their dad. Their mother has just moved into a home where she can be taken care of and can't take care of this big house anymore, and they were emotional. And there were challenges during that face-to-face where I understood what the situation was, but I had to assess in real time and in the real moment, having them all in front of me, what I needed to really focus on to help them get to at least the next stage. Not worried about, can I get the listing? Can we sign this? Who am I up against? I mean, that's all self-serving stuff. Clearly, I'm aware of all that stuff. Clearly, I can deal with it. But the minute you don't worry about what everybody else is doing and you're face-to-face, you're tuned in. And what about all the people that aren't face-to-face? Do you really think they're even in a competitive situation? Oh, I mailed this or I emailed that. Certainly all of those factors are important in the process of how we get at these houses, no doubt about it. But you really, let me go through these points here today. You really have to first, here's point number one, ask yourself, what is the fastest path to that goal? See, a lot of people in the digital age, and we've been disrupted like any industry. Digital age has come in and has changed the model completely. In fact, it's taken me the last 7.5 years or so to relook at the way that I do things, to change it, to go hunting and fishing for what's, still old is new again, that sort of thing, right? That's the good news. I'm talking about face-to-face is that old is new again. The more I can get there, but I have to deal with digital. I mean, in a listing presentation, I'm talking about things like syndicated marketing with digital pictures. And this is all new in the last 10, 15 years, right? And I'm not saying that the technology is brand new 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I know it's been around, but the way that it has come into our business and become a significant part of our business has to be explained. In doing that face-to-face and balancing, well, how will I make a market for it physically? Talking to these agents, doing open houses, and I'll get into that in a second, right? Versus all the digital stuff. You have to be face-to-face with somebody to explain its complexities without confusing them. I mean, if you think you can do that in an email drip to really convert, good luck with that. I love email. I love all the things that I can do with digital, but I understand it's only in a supportive role to get me to the goal, which is to get to face-to-face appointments, right? I got to get there. So I asked myself, what's the fastest path to do it? So let's take sellers, because in the last episode, if you go back, I had the whole business talking about these three avatars: sellers, buyers, and agents, right? So as you go through those three, you look at them and you say, sellers, sellers, sellers. Why? Don't blow me off in this one, please. Whether you're going to go do sellers or not, don't blow me off. The business, you have to ask yourself, how does the business work? Well, it works with inventory. What do you mean inventory? Listings. Who has the listings? The sellers. Without all of that first, there's nothing to buy. There's no marketplace to go to. So we have to deal with the sellers. So the first question relates to sellers. What's the fastest path to the goal to get sellers? I'll deal with it that way. Well, there are a lot of ways to get face-to-face with sellers. And I understand how I got there is the way a lot of my veteran agents listening to this are going to get there too. They're going to be referred. We're doing a job for somebody right down the street who happens to do work on this property, and they have highly recommended us. So wonderful. One piece of business begets the next. But that first piece of business came from us trying to get after those expireds and try to get them some information that would allow us to get in the house quickly to explain it. The fastest path to doing business with somebody we didn't know was to get them a package of information that was supportive and helpful to help them figure out what went wrong and how they could get it done themselves without us. And that allowed us to get in and give a presentation about what makes us different. We won the listing. We put the property under agreement quickly, solved the problem that they had and why they expired within 19 days. And so they thought the world of us enough to refer us. And in we go. So that's very fast. All of this has happened very quickly. See, for years I've been trying to figure out, well, what do I do? Do I run an ad on Google pay-per-click offering a home evaluation just like everybody else who's been influenced by the digital world? Or do I try to find the fastest path? And do I work on that first? Nothing wrong with getting home evaluation leads. Requests for lists of properties that sold. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just simply saying, in this podcast, for me, I wanted to know what the fastest path was, because the fastest path to getting face-to-face allows me to explain my guidance and the opportunity that I bring that I think is different than others and compete. And this is all happening within a couple months' time as I'm broadcasting here to you. This isn't something where I got a digital lead 24, 36 months ago and they were sort of deciding whether they want to do something and I'm obsessing about dripping emails. I do all that. I do. And the first thing that happened in the digital disruption was me stepping in to try to figure that out. And to a certain extent, I also got caught up in it, only to be relieved to find out that, well, wait a minute, we could be spending the next 20 years trying to figure out the best ways to get somebody to convert and lean in digitally, when the truth is, well, we could even go door knock. We could pick up the phone. We could drop a package off physically, whatever we think is the fastest path. Why aren't we trying to figure that out, I asked myself. So we did, and it works. I'm not telling you it's manna from heaven. You know me. If you've heard me before, I'm not an exaggerator. I mean, I just want to win once a certain way and then see if I can duplicate it, replicate it, make it predictable, make it sustainable. But I'm not going to run away from what I'm after, which is to get face-to-face. Have to get there. Whether they're referred to me, whether I don't know them, I need to get in the building with the sellers and be face-to-face. Now, the fastest path to buyers for me. Now, I'm talking as an agent who's executing under the strategic plan for the Griffin Realty Group. What do I like to do to find buyers? I love to do an open house. I know people say, with everything that you have to do, I mean, that's ridiculous. You're not leveraging time that way. Who does that? Send some. I don't know. Sorry, I don't get you. You're lost on me. When you tell me that I can spend 90 minutes in a property that I've listed helping my seller proactively try to make a market, and they have the guy that listed, I can't do them all, obviously, but I can get my agents in there. But for me, in my own book, I like to be in there because when I go in there, I am ready to present the house first, obviously, but then I am also ready to present buyer information face to face. If you're going to try to get buyer leads, follow up with them, call them, email drip them, and that's going to be your primary way, I'm going to ask you to say, or ask yourself the question, is that the fastest path to doing business with buyers that you don't know? And I'm going to argue for me, the answer was an easy no. I mean, I can sit in an open house and I can be ready with a presentation package, meaning not only am I going to give them the property that is for sale in that moment in time, I'm going to have a list of additional properties with their addresses. I'm going to add some sold properties in that give a little bit more insight to what the money's buying. I'm going to have my buyer course in there. I'm going to have a market update in there. And I'm going to have a cover letter that when they walk away and they can't remember a thing I said, it explains how to take advantage of this information I just gave them so that when I find out, I've basically opened up a lane where nobody else is. I've presented. I've given them materials that they want, and I've slipped in what they need, which is a productization of my guidance, and that allows me into this next relationship. Now, in a case with a buyer at an open house, I might go back digital. Now digital becomes very useful because they go back off to their homes and they're not there face-to-face anymore, but we've set it up so that they continue to get properties from MLS. that are for sale. More importantly, adding the solds to continuously show them what happens and what the money buys. Now I can find out if they're not pre-qualified. I can introduce them to the mortgage broker and on it goes. But you see, the power of that face-to-face meeting was everything. So every week that I wake up, I talk to my agents, my mastermind members, anybody about what is the fastest path to doing business with more buyers and sellers. And that is to get face-to-face. And how do you get face-to-face? So I work backwards. And I think that's what's happened to a lot of us. We don't work backwards. We go all the way to the beginning of the funnel. See, the internet's amazing for catching somebody when everything about real estate's a seedling of thought. What do I mean? That little white box that they can dream into. What's my home worth? What are homes selling for in this area? They begin to dream into that. They do their own research, their own due diligence. And I'd love to meet them there too. But if you force me to make a decision, I'm going to try something else that gets me into conversation that leads to an appointment. So for example, is it digital capture in an email drip campaign? I hate that word drip campaign, by the way, our term drip campaign. It's what a dog does to a hydrant, by the way. What I like to do is send content that's valuable to them, given what they asked for. And again, my point is that going to get me in a conversation on the phone where they can hear the tone, right? And is that going to then allow me to get more direct mail, physical, kinesthetic mail and information to them? And is that going to lead me to an appointment? That's all I'm interested in. Why am I going back to digital if it's not the fastest path? Sure, I'll add those layers to my cake later on, but, does that matter? And that leads to the second point here. I have tended now to study first, act second. Study first, act second, because secondly, when you look at the hierarchy of the importance of running a business in Michael Gerber's model that I learned from, there's the visionary who needs to put the North Star, but that can happen pretty quickly. You can get down and I want a successful business in this geography and it does this, okay? It's a good starting point. Just put something up in the scene up there. But the next part is a lot of us run down and we start the open houses, we start the phone calls, and we don't really think about what's the thing we should be studying to pull out a strategy. So see, when I was talking to you about how I got face-to-face, I was giving you some tactical and technical answers, but those fit into strategic approach. So when you sit down and you think strategically first, you get up above all that stuff. And you say, okay, in marketing, if I want this business to be predictable and sustainable, I have to do business with people I don't know. So where do I find them? Well, the expired pile, the FSBO pile, the probate pile. That became a more obvious place for me to begin to search versus going to digital and really sort of farming, quote unquote, digitally in a really big whimsical situation where I really have to pan for gold to find a conversation. So that's as simple as strategy needs to be. You just get up above it and you declare what's obvious. Look for the obvious and be careful of your biases here. Your biases in business like this especially comes from fear. Well, I'm just going to start off with the buyers. Why? Well, I wouldn't even know what to say in a listing presentation. And there's all these other people that they own the area. What? No agent owns an area, by the way. Go look up what percentage of a marketplace any top producer controls. It's smaller than you think, a lot smaller, which leaves an enormous amount of opportunity for you, okay? So if you get up above the business and you begin to think strategically, you can get beyond that fear and just become a student of it. I'm not even saying convince yourself yet that you can do what I'm saying. Just get up above it and say, that's interesting. He's challenging me to figure out strategically, how does the business work? It's driven by listings. And of course, I need both sides of the business to really make it sustainable. So how do I get buyers too? And you just get up above it and then prioritize. Nobody's saying that you wouldn't go to social and do all these things to get buyers that they don't work. Everything that gets some focus to a certain extent works. It's just how long will it take you to make that a steady flow of business? That's my goal, to protect you from that kind of, inaccurate thinking that digital first is the easiest path, okay? To get face-to-face. That's the key. All right, next, if I think strategically about this, why do I want to get face-to-face? Well, what am I trying to do when I get face-to-face? And it's because I want to be able to influence the decision makers. Now, some of you, when you hear influence the decision makers, you might think I'm up to something nefarious. Well, no, I'm not up to anything nefarious. I'm trying to compete. And when I say influence, what I mean is I want them to understand what I do and how I do it differently. What I do and how I do it differently. See, a lot of people assume that the buyer and the seller know what we do. And to a certain extent, they might know some of what we do as real estate agents, but most of them only have bits and pieces and they've parceled it together, and that's when the tail starts to wag the dog. Oh, I know how this works, and you do this. Okay, that's fine. But I want to get in front of them and say, okay, let me just assume that you haven't gone through this recently. Here is how it works, right? All these things are the universal steps that a seller goes through. And how I do it is this. See, I'm able to present face-to-face simply in an organized way, but also, more importantly, read the reactions. See, that's what face-to-face is really about, is if I want to influence you, I can present to you first to empower you, but then I have to watch for your reactions, and I have to ask the right questions around that. So you don't just go in there, which I used to do. I would go in there and zip through my whole entire presentation, and I'm certain the business that I got was more a matter of the fact that the seller surrendered, right? They just surrendered. Yep, you sound good enough, and we haven't heard anything like this. And I don't know that that was my best business. I know it wasn't my best business. My best business is now by educating, empowering, and influencing them to understand that I have a professional approach so that I can open up a different lane. So I end up in a lane that's a little bit competition-less. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this with hubris, an exaggeration, or braggadocio. I'm just simply saying the minute you can present, you are different than the others just by the way you talk and the way you handle yourself. But if you can layer in a professional strategic approach upon that in the home, and even having the two sisters today move over to sit next to each other, so I'm presenting specifically in a way that I can see them both at the same time. And I can see their interaction when they look at each other, when a sweet spot is hit, or when they cried together and I hugged them on the way out the door. Literally, I'm telling you what happened. All of that comes because the influence, in my case today, was all about just caring for them in that moment, empowering them to gain some control over what they were losing to emotionally. That's all I completed today. Walked out the door, set a time to follow up, and I know I have opened up a lane where I have some unique follow-up because I've made some suggestions about people who we can get, who we can't get. They have other people that are involved in this point in time because I was referred in, came in a little bit late when the process started. So I just open up my lane, I'm there, and now I go back to some of the follow-up. Now the question is, can I now use digital to support what goes on? Of course. I can send empowering emails. I can send properties. We can send training videos. Now that there's relationship, because I've influenced them to at least allow me into a relationship, let that sink in for a second. If I can get face-to-face to you and be helpful where I meet you today, and even though today is not, you're not ready and you need to get down the line, can I open up a lane after the face-to-face where I am uniquely helping you and building walls up around our relationship so it's more likely that you choose me, you feel empowered by me? Yes, yes, and yes. That's how this works. I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm not white-knuckled. I'm not walking out there, well, when do you think you're going to list it? When do you think the day? I'm not that guy because I don't need to be. Because I'm doing this in this strategic way. I know that I've met with them and built this rapport by helping them. And I know that's unique because if not, they would tell me it wasn't. Okay? And again, they feel comfortable enough in the end to confess to me, this is really emotional. And that's when they began to cry. I love that. I can't achieve that unless I'm in there. And I said, thank you so much for opening up to me. It is such a better process when you let me be that person. Because they said, I guess you're going to have to be my psychologist. I said, you better believe I will be. I just wanted you to know the basics of the system, but I want you to begin to trust that you can lay that off on me. And let me tell you something. You don't like who's going to buy the place? Then that's not the person that's going to buy the place. You don't like the way the process is going or need a breather? We're going to slow it down. See, when you're face to face and you're saying that in a genuine way, and you really mean it, just everything is different. This isn't business anymore. This is the proper professional way to treat people in a real estate context. And I will guarantee you, I win a lot more business in the long run because of this approach. It just works. I'm not theoretical. I'm telling you, every time I have an in the field anecdote that I can share with you, or one of my mastermind clients do, I share it. So the last point here is, I'm going to repeat this. I've said it throughout this podcast, but you need to get face to face with people as quickly as possible. Now, that doesn't mean you're forcing people who don't have context to meet into a meeting. Okay? Remember what I said. This is not about getting digital leads that might just be a whimsical initial inquiry where they're thinking about it down the line and you're beating them up for an appointment. That is, I'm not a proponent of it. I think it will hurt you a lot. And really doing that, I've seen a lot of people not go broke, but they're always with the alligators licking their ankles, right? Meaning they're spending so much money to keep that. And they're yelling at their telemarketing staff, more appointments, more. It's just this bizarre, weird thing that a lot of top producers fall into. Don't do that. In the same breath, I do want you to get as many appointments as you can, as quickly as you can. So change your perspective. Get up above the business and say, where is there context where somebody really would be willing to meet with me because their timing is closer to now? You know, you hear that term all the time about now business. It's out there. Expireds, FSBOs, probates, divorces, all those types of sellers are people we don't know. You can get lists of those people and you can call them up and be helpful. And if their timing is really what you thought it was the near term, there's a large possibility you will get face-to-face, okay? Now, clearly, also at the other end of the business, after you've created happy past clients and you're in touch with them, get face-to-face with them too. Because when you're face-to-face with past clients on a regular basis, whether it be a party, whether it be a stop by on their property anniversary to deliver a property anniversary gift, the more you're face-to-face with them, the more likely and moved emotionally they are because of your kinesthetic experience around that they'll go out and find you somebody to get face-to-face with. Okay, I gave you an anecdote here today with an active client who we just met 60 days ago, already because of what we were able to do professionally, feeling comfortable to send us to one of their clients. But there's a lot of ways to do this. Just work with your logic. Get out of a digital context. If you find a digital context that will get you really motivated people, and you can get in there relatively quickly because that lead source is getting you people who are ready to go, I'm good. No argument. I'm back looking to try to crack that code all the time. But I'm just saying, my guidance to you is to think for yourself, where could you be in somebody's house talking about how to help them sell it? Where could you be, like an open house, meeting even more of those sellers? The nosy neighbor comes all the time and everybody complains about, the nosy neighbor. Yeah, duh. They're thinking about selling. So they're scouting what's going on in the neighborhood. Have you ever seen a few signs up in the same neighborhood? Hello? Are you ready to present something to them when they come through, or you just have only the sheets for the house? I get it. We're there to serve the seller who we're selling. But once that transaction happens, they sign in, you give them the sheets, you talk about the house, and they say, well, I'm not really here to buy this one because I don't like it. It doesn't fit my needs. Okay, here's some more information as a buyer. Or, hey, I live down the street and I'm thinking about selling mine. Great, here's that. Come on, folks, think. It's right in front of us, face to face. Can happen every weekend at an open house, even if you borrow it from somebody that you work with. All right, let me go back to these points. The goal is to get face-to-face, so you have to start asking yourself some questions or think this way. What is the fastest path for you to get face-to-face with sellers and buyers who have real context to buy or sell inside the next, say, 60 days? Think that way. Next, you learn by studying your business. You don't just go do those things like an open house. You get up above it and you say, what is that experience going to be like? If I were the buyer coming through or the seller coming through an open house, what would I want? That's how you should be thinking, so that you are there ready to give, ready to supply, ready to present. Next, this is all about getting face-to-face so you can influence decision makers to understand that you are a good option and that there are things that are unique about you that they can latch onto. Hopefully it's first your professional approach, and then because you are a professional, they begin to trust you. And lastly, The idea is to get face-to-face appointments as quickly as possible. Now, of course, if you have a great long-term follow-up system, that will get you more in regular follow-up, okay? So to summarize the key point here, the real estate agent business has certainly been disrupted by the digital age, like any other business. However, what hasn't changed is that selling a piece of real estate is still a major emotional and financial decision, and one best discussed face-to-face. So don't hide behind your technology and get face-to-face with the decision makers and influence them in a positive, helpful way. Hey, remember, you can take immediate action to get up above the business and get strategic, like I just talked about, with our free simple business plan sitting there waiting for you at freeagentgift.com. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so we don't want you to miss out on all those insights each time we upload an episode. They're helpful, hopefully, if you take action on them. This is actually what we coach at the mastermind level. Also, we broadcast our live sales training calls. If you want to get technical and tactical with me, I'm on Facebook and YouTube every Friday at 1 o'clock EDT, and all the recordings are there too. If you just head over and turn on your page and channel notifications for the Realty Classroom at those channels where we broadcast. We'd also appreciate it if you would share our content with other entrepreneurial real estate agents just like you so they get the help that they need. Hey, thanks for listening, and remember, nobody is coming for you. So please go get to work on your own business. See you in the next episode.